I'm my own special creation. So come take a look, give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I bang my own drum. Some think it's noise, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each feather and each spangle? Why not try to see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can shout out loud, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. There's one life and there's no return and no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am.
Andrew Tinker! Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, I am on. Oh,
Yay! Thank
Andrew.
you so much, Andrew.
Andrew, thank you for doing that song. He learned that song. As I was looking at the words of that song, having not really looked at the words of that song before, I was floored at how great the words of that song are. La Cage aux Folles. Great song. So, I am what I am. I am my own special creation. That's what Andrew just sang. And so, I am a divine, unique, individualized expression of love and light, just as each one of us are. That's what I am, right? And I love, it's like I bang my own drum. Some think it's noise, some think it's pretty. But I am what I am. And so the question for us today is, isn't it time, once and for all, for our own sake, to be willing to be all that we each are, that unique divine expression and how we show up as the divine? And isn't it time for the sake of our own life, and actually it's for the sake of every single person around us, that we allow ourselves to be who we are and what we're called to be? And that's what we teach in the Science Mind. That's what we teach all the time. I am that. I am. I am God in the flesh, in action. I am the divine presence. And actually, no permission to be that is required from anyone.
So I want to begin with our fabulous reading that we've been working with, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And this is in her section called Permission. It's a little bit long, so I'm hoping that you'll indulge me. This is in a section in permission, getting permission, not needing permission, all of the issues around that. It's entitled Entitlement. In order to live this way, free to create, free to explore, free to be me, you must possess a fierce sense of personal entitlement. Now, I recognize that the word entitlement has dreadfully negative connotations, but I'd like to appropriate it here and put it to good use, because you will never be able to create anything interesting out of your life if you don't believe that you are entitled to try. Creative entitlement simply means believing that you are allowed to be here, and that merely by being here, you are allowed to have a voice and a vision of your own. The poet David White calls this sense of creative entitlement the arrogance of belonging, and claims that it is an absolutely vital privilege to cultivate if you wish to interact more vividly with life. The arrogance of belonging is not about egotism or self-absorption. In a strange way, it's the opposite. It is a divine force that will actually take you out of yourself and allow you to engage more fully with life. Because often what keeps you from creative living is your self-absorption, your self-doubt, your self-disgust, your self-judgment, your crushing sense of self-protection. The arrogance of belonging pulls you out of the darkest depths of self-hatred, not by just saying, I'm the greatest, but by saying, I am here. She goes on to say this: I believe that this good kind of arrogance, this simple entitlement to exist, and therefore to express yourself, is the only weapon with which to combat the nasty dialogue that may automatically arise within your head whenever you get a creative impulse. You know that nasty dialogue I mean, right? I'm talking about that nasty dialogue that goes like this. Well, who the hell do you think you are, trying to be creative? You suck. You're stupid. You have no talent and you serve no purpose. Go back into your hole. To which you may have spent a lifetime obediently responding, you're right, I do suck and I am stupid. Thank you, I'll go back in my hole now. I would like to see you engaged in a more generative and interesting conversation with yourself. For heaven's sakes, at least defend yourself. Defending yourself as a creative person begins by defining yourself. It begins when you declare your intent. Stand up tall, say it out loud, whatever it is. I'm a writer, I'm a singer, I'm a gardener, I'm a photographer. I am this, I am that. I am also this other thing too. I don't know exactly what I am, but I'm curious enough to find out. Speak it. Let it know you're there. Hell, let you know you're there. Because this statement of intent is just as much an announcement to yourself as it is an announcement to the universe or anybody else. Hearing this announcement, your soul will mobilize accordingly. It will mobilize ecstatically, in fact, because this is what your soul was born for.
Yes. And not only is this what your soul is born for, but you don't need permission, not even from yourself. I know y'all didn't see yourself in that reading at all. So, another way that Elizabeth describes it is about permission. She said, you don't need anyone's permission. Merely by being here. You are allowed to have a voice and creatively express yourself. So, for your own sake, and certainly for ours, this is the call. This is the call, because when we are inauthentic, when we suppress anything about ourselves, about anything about who we are, and what is wanting to creatively express as us, when we keep trying to please others. Anybody do that? Okay, I'm trying to please Dale, and I'm doing my best to please him, and just when I think I've got it right, he changes the rules on me. Right? So, if we do not express who we are and we suppress who we are not, then we either turn it upon ourselves, and that shows up in illnesses of the body and of the mind, and in depression especially. It's turned inward to ourselves. Or even, we lash out at others. There's violence at home, and as we continue to see over and over again in single and multiple events, we thrash out at others.
So here we are again. 9/11, Columbine, Sandy Hook, Ferguson, Trayvon Martin, Charleston, and now 50 candles for Orlando. How long will we keep coming together over and over and over again over tragedies until we get it? Until we get it. That each and every individual is a part of the human family. That we have a right to exist, to express ourselves, no matter who we are, no matter where we came from, the color of our skin, our sexual orientation, our gender, our socioeconomic status, no matter what. How long? How many times do we have to light candles together, mourn together, grieve together, be together until we get it? I don't know, have you seen it going around on Facebook this last week? Somebody posted it, somebody started it, I don't know who it was, and the thought was, put this on your timeline if you've ever felt this way. And it's been passed around and around and around. If you're gay, it's a sin. If you're bisexual, you're confused. If you're skinny, you're just on drugs. If you're fat, well, you look nasty. If you're black, you're dangerous. If you're Hispanic, you're lazy. If you're dressed up, you're conceited. If you speak your mind, you're a bitch. If you don't say anything, you're a punk. If you cry, you're a drama queen. If you have male friends, you're a hoe. If you have female friends, you're a player. But you can't do anything without being criticized. We live in a society where people can't survive if they're not judging the next person. Love me or hate me, but you will never change me. Believe that. Be proud of that. Be proud of who you are. Whether you're tall or short, skinny or fat, black or white, Hispanic or Asian, rich or poor, don't censor yourself just to satisfy the ignorance of others. Yeah. Now this is what, thank you. Yes. And this is what we believe the science of mind teaches us. This is what we practice here. Love yourself, which allows you to love others. Loving others helps you to love yourself. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Not more, not less. Love yourself as your neighbor. Not more, not less. This is an equation of equality and inclusion. And this love allows us to see the truth of each other. Now, this love doesn't necessarily, it isn't not about people who simply want to do what they want to do. This desire to express ourselves isn't just to frivolously do anything we want to do, but it is about being authentically who we are. That's a much, much harder road. And to honestly see that in each other.
So, think about people that have authentically been themselves throughout the ages, and there are many. There are hundreds, there are thousands, there are millions. And recently, in his passing, I've learned even more and more about an individual that truly stood up and was authentically himself. He didn't ask permission, and he didn't back off of it. And that was Muhammad Ali. He stood up at a time when actually there weren't a lot of people standing up and saying, I'm a black man and I'm proud of it. And he stood up and he said, you know, he believed in what he believed in. And he actually said, I am the greatest. He declared the I am presence, just like Peter read from the book. And he had a faith, and that faith, especially being talked about at that time, was certainly a minority in this country, and still is. But he stood up for that faith. He didn't back off of his faith. And he said, I am a Muslim. And even when it meant that he would be stripped of his title, would never fight again, any of the things that they were throwing at him, and said, if you don't change and not be yourself, this is going to be the consequences. Even his own life, he said, I am that. I am. And I know each of us have people in our own personal life, or people we've come in contact with, or people we've heard about that have authentically been themselves. And so I want you in this moment to think of someone, just one, think of someone that you have met in your life that wasn't afraid to be precisely who they are. And bring that person into your mind and heart right now. And in doing so, think about how you felt around them. How did you feel around that person? Good. Yes? Ernest Holmes tells us that you exist so that divine feeling, fire, imagination, and creativity may be expressed through you. The Spirit comes to you with a new and fresh creativity. You need not ask what others have done or how they have done it. Be yourself and express life as you find it. Never imitate. Trust the self. Find the self in God and God in the self. So the question this morning for you is, what is it that you're not expressing? What is it that you're not expressing? That you don't give yourself permission to be? Where are you waiting for permission from somewhere else? From someone else? And really, what is the cost of that to you? And begin to think about what is the cost of that to all of us, those around you that know and love you.
Ernest Holmes says, when life created us, it gave us two great endowments of God, the two highest gifts of heaven, love and creativity. Love so that we may have confidence in life, a sense of security and peace and joy in living. Creativity so that we can really live as persons and express ourselves individually. Life is done very well by us. Would it be too much to say that God has given us the best it has, and then let us alone to discover ourselves? And I think as a human race, we are discovering ourselves. And in that trajectory of evolution, as we have seen, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But that equals 1 step forward. And here at CSLDallas, we actually believe that we are participating individually and collectively in that evolution. In the evolution of consciousness. In the evolution of life itself, from a fear-based mentality of little tribes living in caves somewhere in the mountains, having to defend themselves from everybody else, to this profound understanding that we are one. And that one means love and inclusivity at the heart of how we are to be together. So we see CSLDallas as a spiritual laboratory. We are about as diverse a community as you can get. Black and white, rich and poor. We have people on every side of the political spectrum, from the right to the left, to the in-between, to the I don't care. Every place. We have all kinds of people here, whether it's sexual orientation, age, wherever they've come from, ethnicity, people from all over the world. We have people as a part of this community who still go to other houses of worship and see themselves participating in those houses of worship and being a part of this community as well. We have people all over the map, everywhere. So we really see, deeply understand CSLDallas to be a spiritual laboratory for what humanity can look like and be like from this deep spiritual understanding. And you see, this is not an agenda. This is how we believe our faith is to be practiced. This is what it looks like to walk a faith path that says we're all one. And every life is an incarnation and an expression of the divine. And so part of what we're learning here is not only how to do that, because sometimes it gets a little messy, right? We don't agree on everything. We're not always really sure. And then we get into committees, and then we really don't agree on everything. And right? And then we have to work with each other, and we're like, wait, I thought we were like-minded. What happened? And we discover, oh, you're different than me. Oh my gosh, now what? Right? And we have to work on our triggers and our disappointments and our projections and all of those things that heal us as individuals, personally, all of those things that heal us to our spiritual maturing, to where we can see the truth in each other. Because by God, if we can't do it here, how are we going to do it out there? And so this becomes our laboratory. And we believe that here at CSLDallas, practicing science of mind and new thought, not only does it teach us how to do that, not only does it give us a way in which we can practice doing that, but that we are proud that this is who we are, and that this is what we stand for, and this is what we speak about, and this is how we will move in the world, no matter what, no matter what's going on out there. And we will not be moved from this place. And we will not stop speaking about love and inclusivity and the truth of oneness and the joy of seeing and celebrating our uniqueness. Now, a number of years ago, CSLDallas was involved in, I was very involved in an attempt to bring the Parliament of the World Religions here in 2014. And we spent a couple of years working on that project, and we did huge amounts of research and made a massive proposal, and we got the mayors involved, and it's a gigantic thing that we were involved in. The upshot of it was, as many of you know, we were the top two cities, Dallas and Brussels, or DFW and Brussels were the two final choices. They did at the end then choose Brussels. But there was so much that I learned by being a part of that. One of the most important things that I learned is this. This came from an article in The Economist. It was written early in the turn of the century, the turn of this century. And they had done a lot of research and a lot of study. And this article said, in the 1800s, the U.S. went the way of New York, followed the fashions of New York, the ideas of New York. New York was really Wall Street and Broad Street and was really leading the way. In the 1900s, in the 20th century, the U.S. went the way of Los Angeles. That became the forerunner, the leader of thought and ideas. And people were looking to Los Angeles and to California. And the 20th century followed in many ways and places where Los Angeles was going. And The Economist looked at what was happening in the 21st century as the 21st century was really starting to get going. And they said for the 21st century, the U.S. will go the way of Dallas.
Feel that. I bet they're all different perspectives in the room. Feel that.
Yeah. So that might be scary to some people. But what's the opportunity? We intend for Dallas to go the way of CSLDallas. Yes. And if Dallas goes the way of CSLDallas, so will the nation. And so it is. You see, this is what we believe it means to walk our faith path, to hold the light, to be the beacon, to not just light candles for people that have been slain out of fear and ignorance, but to stand as that light, as that candle, to not be moved by the rhetoric that we hear in the media, by leaders, by faith leaders from many different faiths, to not be moved, to stand unshakably in our faith. Many thousands of years ago, my little clicker is having a little trouble today. I may not be able to get this quote up. See, I don't know. All right, we might just, it's very, very sticky today. So we're just going to have to, we might just have to abandon the PowerPoint.
Will go up.
Thank you. Confucius says this: a reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Yeah, shall I read that to you again? Would you like to hear that again?
Because you can't see it.
The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. Yeah, and sometimes this is where we get a little foggy about what love and inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you.
What love and inclusivity means. Right? It doesn't mean that we necessarily accept the behaviors of others. It says we believe in ourselves. We stand in our truth and in what we believe to be true. Now, here we stand again. Some people would have said after the legalization of gay marriage that what happened in Orlando was impossible. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And whether it's black or Hispanic or women, men's rights, all of the places where it feels as though progress is made, and then we wonder. So Karen and I have spent a lot of time talking about this week. And what is ours to do? What is ours to do as a community? What is ours to do as faith leaders as we listen to some of the things that people are saying from their platforms, from their pulpits, in their churches, in their mosques, in their places of worship? So, well, we did our research where everybody does their research on the internet, of course, right? And we found this amazing study because we were looking at this question: how do you know what the tipping point is? We keep talking about critical mass in consciousness, right? How do we know? When is it enough? When will we get there? So a study was done in 2011, and it's called Minority Rules. Scientists discover tipping point for the spread of ideas. This little graph right here, this visualization, we see the tipping point where minority opinion, which is shown in red, is the little red dot. So if you go to the little ball in the back, you see there's only a few little red dots in that first ball. And over time, see there's more and more red dots. The green dots are the majority opinion. And all of a sudden up here, and you can see it also on the graph, there's this exponential, it takes off. The red dots take over. Here's what they discovered. This is scientists at the Polytechnic Institute have found that when just 10% of the population holds an unshakable belief, their belief will always be adopted by the majority of the society. True believers throughout each of the networks are people with that were completely set in their views and unflappable in modifying those beliefs. As those true believers began to converse with those who held the traditional belief of the system, the tides gradually and then very abruptly began to change. Now, the problem is, in general, people do not like to have an unpopular opinion and are always seeking to try locally to come to consensus. So what does that mean? We have an unbelievable, unshakable belief in oneness, but when we're talking to our family and friends, we seek not to offend. We're uncomfortable to speak about our faith. We're uncomfortable to feel outside of the norm. We're uncomfortable with perhaps hard or accusatory questions. We're uncomfortable being outside of what seems to be the majority. And so we equivocate, or we don't speak at all because it is uncomfortable to have an unpopular opinion. And yet, do you understand? This study shows that it only requires 10% of the population to have an unshakable belief that they are unwilling to modify. Is this recognizable in some of the things that are going on in our country today? And are we willing to be as unshakable in our beliefs? Are we willing to stand as unwilling to modify our expectation for justice, equity, inclusivity, love, seeing each and every human being as a divine incarnation? There is injustice in the world, and it's not okay. And we should be outraged because it is not in alignment with our belief. And when we have 10% is all it takes.
We've been talking a lot this week, and we've met with a lot of people, and we've had a lot of conversations this week on this very topic. And it's actually lit a fire under Dr. Peacher and I, because, again, to have the vision of Dallas goes the way of CSLDallas, and then the country goes the way of Dallas. And if we think about it, approximately 8 million people. That's not a lot of people in the 10%, but we could start from the bottom up. We could start with 400 people here. And I know everyone here in this community knows at least 20 people. And to be unshakable in this love, in this light, in this sense of oneness, in the sense of equity and inclusivity, and that will grow. And it will take no time to reach that 800,000. And we're not the only ones here.
Not by any means.
However, there are huge, huge faith communities in this city that are still propagating fear and hatred. And we cannot take one thread, even if one attempts. There was a mother of 11 on this table, right? There were Latinos, African Americans, gay, straight, young, not so young, all in this one place. You can't pull the one thread out of this fabric of us. And so this is our call. This is our time to really get strong and stand and not waver in our faith. To speak up when we're called to speak up. And to, by all means, hold the course. Hold the course. Hold the course. Do not let anything take us into fear and hatred. And I really had to watch that this week. Again, there is just about every representation in this community here. You may not know who you're sitting with, and yet we're all here practicing and being this faith together. So we are not to go into fear. Remember at the beginning of the month, if you were here, Dr. Peacher talked about our fear and putting our arm around it and saying, I'm going in with you. You know what? It's been there have been some moments where I just wanted to back off. And I know Dr. Peacher has moments over the course of her ministry here where she's felt the presence of someone where it might be her last day. And yet, we cannot let the fear move us from this stand of love at all. And if you need a buddy to go in with you, you want to put your arm around somebody, grab someone, make a call. Say, I'm about to go somewhere and I'm a little afraid. Or I'm about to have a conversation with my boss. I just heard over here the rhetoric. And no longer be silent. Get a fear buddy in this community and call and say, help me. Not move from this. And hold the course. Hold the course. For the sake of this country, hold the course.
Ernest Holmes says, if we are free from the blight of fear, we can help others to a place of faith. If our whole consciousness responds to love, our presence will automatically heal hate. So one of the things that we've learned or are learning is that there's such power in the way in which we show up. There's such power in our presence. There's such power in simply being and not being afraid. And we're also learning that it is important to speak truth, or at least our truth, to have an unshakable, unwavering commitment to the way that we want to see it, to be bold in that, and to recognize that that includes everyone. That includes each and every person. That includes those people we don't agree with. That includes people who we don't agree with politically, people we don't agree with in some other way in which then economically, people we don't agree with because of their race or ethnicity. That means we stand guard at the portals of our mind, and we practice the love and inclusivity that we expect to receive, because that's what it means to love. I don't know about you, fathers, you in the room, fathers, you know this, mothers, you know this. It sometimes is challenging to love our children, is it not? Yes, I heard that recognition. Partners in the room. Sometimes it's a little challenging to love our partner, isn't it? And yet, that love is what holds us together, binds us together, and we see beyond any apparent difference. But we're one human family. We're a human family, incarnations of the divine.
There are 50 candles on the table. One represents the shooter.
No less a child of God. No less part of the whole, part of the one. And it is a profound discipline to stand in love, to stand in love, for love, not attacking, not aggressive, but unwilling to step back, unwilling to adapt, adjust, seek not to offend, make it okay. When we talk about this way of living our faith, we're talking about standing for and speaking up for what we believe and what we hold to be true. Love of God, love of self, love of each other, love of the transformative power of the spiritual life, and the transformative power of love. Margaret Mead says this: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. We are a group, thank you. We are a group of thoughtful, spiritual people, committed to our spiritual path, citizens of a humanity willing to stand for that change, to see the truth, to speak the truth, to be the truth. We do actually believe that consciousness is changing. We are outraged by these events because we should be. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, these events were all acceptable, swept under the rug. It was okay, don't talk about it, it's all right. No, it's not. It's not all right. And because we know who we are, we know who each other is. And so, see, at CSLDallas, from this we will not be moved. This is where we stand. This is the place we stake our claim. And so it is.